Hi, this is Chris Fabian, and today I'm going to talk about a very simple but powerful concept, and that is the identification of all of the programs and services that we offer and the calculation of all the costs and what it can bring to our organization. Um, in 2015, we co-wrote an article with the Government Finance Officers Association centering on this concept called program budgeting. Program budgeting is the precursor to priority-based budgeting, where program budgeting is simply the identification of all of the services we offer and the calculation of all the costs. As GFOA came to understand the power of program budgeting, they centered on a host of key objectives. One being the accomplishment of financial transparency, truly being able to communicate what it is that we offer to citizens and how much it actually costs us to provide it. Program budgeting allows us to make apples to apples comparisons of the programs that we offer so that we can actually engage in trade-off decision making. For those of us who are going through the discussion of whether or not we're the right source to provide a program or whether or not we are the appropriate source and we need to consolidate, how are we able to engage in these conversations without a thorough understanding of what we do, how much it costs us to provide these programs compared to another service providing entity. I'm going to get into all of these areas of conversation as we demonstrate the tool. And for those of you who have engaged in the process, what I'm going to show you is how we open up the analysis through the online priority-based budgeting portal in the area called Program Costing Analyzer. And here in this first example, we're going to the city of Chandler, Arizona, which is in the Phoenix metropolitan area. And as you complete your work in program costing, the very first thing that we're able to see within Program Cost Analyzer is how we've flipped your line item budget into a program budget. And overall, across the entire organization, we can see total cost trends as they're broken out into personnel related costs, the cost of our people, our non-personnel related costs, anything that is more operational in nature, our internal allocated costs, and perhaps most interestingly, how our program revenues, our grants, fees for service, and charges align with the total costs of providing our services. And here in Chandler, as a prime example, as they began to analyze their program budgeting information, they centered on their Community and Neighborhood Services Department. This was a department most analogous to a Parks and Recreation department that had specific charges for service for the programs that they provided. And as they centered in on this particular department, what interested them the most was the realization that when it came to the fees for service that they were charging, they seemed to be very low compared to the total cost of providing all of the programs that they offered. And in a traditional Parks and Recreation department, sometimes our cost recovery rates are much higher than what they were seeing here in this organization. So within Program Costing Analyzer, what we're able to do is actually drill into the specific programs and be able to understand on a per program basis how the total costs were derived, how the program revenues align with the total costs of providing those services for every single program offered within the department, clearly every single program offered in the organization. And as the city of Chandler zeroed in on this particular analysis, they found program 26 here. They're, the way that they are providing public swimming pools, public swim hours, as a key program to study, in which the total costs of providing the programs were just over $1 million compared to the program revenues here, as you see, of $350,000. And they thought, wow, how could we be so short of collecting all of the fees for providing this service? Well, as we scroll further into the portal, we are able to dive deeper into any of the programs to actually find the detail on the translation of our line item budget to the program budget. So here as I highlight program 26, we see it's public swim and the total cost being $1 million compared to the program revenues here at $348,000. And the way that the portal is aligned is such that we can look at any of our non-personnel operating costs here on the left-hand side relative to the personnel costs over here on the right-hand side. And as the city was analyzing their program costs, they could see these were predictable expenses: operating supplies, repairs and maintenance. These are the costs of maintaining the pool. But as they scrolled over on the personnel side, they began to see all of the people who charge their time to the programs. Here's a recreation coordinator, a lifeguard, a customer service representative, an aquatics superintendent, and all of these costs made sense up until they highlighted this particular cost, their temporary labor, amounting to just over $700,000 worth of total costs. And it was at this moment that they realized that they had calculated their program revenues, the fees and rates that they charged at the pool, based on a total program cost excluding the temporary laborers. And this was the major difference in the way that they had actually calculated their fee recoupment. And it led to actionable data where they could actually reconsider the overall rates at the pool. They could actually focus on cost containment for their temporary labor and staff. And this is what we can do for every single program once you get into a program budget. We're able to see total costs, what derives the costs of providing those service from an operating line item standpoint and a personnel related standpoint. And most importantly, it's as if we can have a rate study for every program that we offer across the organization. So what I actually highlighted is tab 1 within the program cost analyzer, which is how we translate from programs and drill into line items. But we can actually turn the tables and begin to analyze line items as they associate with programs. And for this example, I'm going to take us to Washington County, Wisconsin, where we're now looking at all of the specific line items across the organization. Here, as we're analyzing advertising and legal notices, we can come to an understanding of what programs are actually driving these specific costs. So in Washington County, if we wanted to focus on what programs are actually leading to our overall cost increase in advertising and legal notices, we see it's program 483. And as we scroll down further, we see that that's coming from the golf course. This is the way that we're advertising and providing marketing for our golf course program. More interestingly, as we drill into these particular costs in Washington County, they wanted to focus on overtime and what programs specifically were driving high costs overall in their overtime. And they could see here's program 764, program 637, program 765. And again, as they drill deeper into it, we begin to unveil the specific programs where we can have a thoughtful, meaningful, and ultimately actionable conversation about those programs where we're spending a lot of overtime dollars in order to provide the program and engage in a conversation about how we approach our workforce, whether or not new hires could actually be the answer to this particular problem and ultimately begin to contain costs. Finally, in this particular tab of the portal, as we scroll all the way down, what becomes most interesting for the departments is the ability to look at all staff and their time allocation across all of the programs that they provide. So here, as we're looking at a 4-H youth development staff member, we can see overall the costs of this particular staff member as it's broken out over all of the various programs. If we wanted to shift from a dollar perspective to a percentage overall time allocation, we're able to see that as well. And what becomes very fascinating in this particular area of the portal is how our managers are looking at all of their staff resources and being able to ask the question, what if somebody is up for retirement? What if a position is left vacant? We can begin to now look at every single program and the time that each staff member spends towards supporting each program and come to the question, do we need to fill this person's position 100%? Can we only focus on specific programs overall? How are we going to handle replacing this particular staff member? Here is an assistant finance director in this particular example, and being able to take a look at all of their time allocated across all of the programs that they serve. And if this person is about to be replaced, we can come to an understanding that primarily only these top programs that she's allocated to are the programs that need to be replaced overall. The final area of Program Cost Analyzer that I want to draw our attention to is the BPA Analyzer, where we're able to gain a perspective on every program that we offer and our overall spending in terms of how the program scored against very specific basic program attributes. So here in the county organization, taking, for example, this very first category of how mandated are the programs, we begin to get a spending profile overall that allows us to understand for programs that scored 4 in mandate, these are programs that were mandated by the federal government or the state government above us to provide. Programs that scored 3, also very highly mandated. And as we come down to programs that scored 0, these are programs that we are not mandated to provide whatsoever. This all ties out to your total budget. As we look at the next basic program attribute, we're able to see for programs that scored a 4 in the reliance category, these are programs that your citizens are entirely reliant upon you to receive this particular service, whereas programs that scored low in reliance, there appear to be other opportunity areas, other service providers, be it in the public sector or possibly even the private sector. Cost recovery, these are programs that are paying for themselves entirely out of grants, out of fees for service, charges for service, whereas programs that are scoring low on the cost recovery scale, these are programs that are not paying for themselves and are actually subsidized by general government resources. Change in demand, 0 representing programs where the demand is actually stable, not increasing. Programs that scored 4 or 3, these are programs that are experiencing a high increase in demand. And finally, overall population served, where a high score in population served represents programs that are serving the entirety of the community, whereas programs that score low in this category are programs that are geared towards a limited constituency. And what becomes very fascinating as we put this information to use is that we can take, for instance, programs that score lower on the mandate scale. So what I'm doing is I'm excluding those programs that are highly mandated to our organization because we want to remove them from our conversation. I'm only focusing in on programs that scored low on the mandate scale, meaning if anything, it might be our own policies that are requiring us to provide them. As we look at these particular programs, these become interesting to us because we actually have some options here. We can really consider our hands are not tied by the legislation that we're trying to uphold. Perhaps we have some options to consider here. As we couple this perhaps with the reliance scale, we can simultaneously look at programs that scored low in reliance, meaning now we're going to look at programs that we're not necessarily mandated to provide, and simultaneously it appears that there might be another partner providing a similar service. These are prime opportunity areas to take a look at these programs. Maybe we can partner with somebody, and it might be easier to consider these programs because we're not necessarily mandated to provide them. So as we come down to look at this overall array of programs, we see we've now limited it to a smaller percentage overall of our budget, and we can look at all of these particular programs, and actually we can dive into them for each specific department to see what programs that they offer that might be ripe for a potential public-private partnership, that might be an opportunity area for a public-public partnership, and an efficiency that could be gained through coordinated service delivery. We could add one more just for the case of going through this example and say, why don't we take out the program revenues and only focus on those general government resources overall, meaning if the program was paying for itself, we don't want to talk about that program either. We're only going to focus on those programs that we're subsidizing. And again, as we drill down into these specific programs, we are now touching on a very interesting group of opportunity areas. And again, those areas that for each department, they can take a specific look and determine, is there a partnership opportunity? Could we be recovering more fees for this service? Is there a grant that could help us to pay for these specific services overall? So this is meant to be just a taste of exactly where we're headed in the use of your program costing data and the ultimate deliverable that will come with your tool.